Hello, lovelies. So, today I'm going to talk about why couples drift apart and what you can do about it if you're experiencing this in your relationship. So, it's the number one thing people always ask me working with couples: what is the number one reason that relationships start to fall apart? And in my view, it's unmet expectations. Having unmet expectations is one of the biggest things that erodes relationships. So, everybody has expectations in a relationship. My question to you is, does your partner know about them? What are you expecting from them in all areas of your relationship? Because when you're not getting the expectations met, you start getting resentful, you start withholding, you start pulling back, and that's where drift starts to happen in a relationship, and especially in marriage. Everybody, most people on their wedding day kind of want to freeze frame their relationship on that day and go, well, I hope it's like this forever. And they set a really high expectation that where they are on that day has to be where they will always be. And you've got to take that expectation and get rid of it, because the only constant thing we have in life is change, and that applies to your relationship more than anything else. So that is a big one. The next areas that I see where couples start to drift and shift apart is when their needs are not being met. Guys, we've got fundamental needs we have to get met on an ongoing basis. We need safety and security. We need adventure and newness. We need to feel significant to our partner and to everyone else in our life. We need to have that love and that connection. We have to experience growth in a relationship. So as much as we have to experience those needs in our own lives, we've got to experience them in a relationship. And when we're not getting them met, we're going to create distance in our relationship. Again, that resentment creeps in, and that's when that shift starts to happen. Having different values and beliefs is another area where drifting starts to happen. So I know that we've got very core beliefs and core values that we carry throughout our lives, but some do shift throughout our life, and especially when we're in relationship. And you might find yourself in a relationship where either your values or some of your beliefs are shifting, or your partners are shifting, and you can't align with them anymore. So a shift in values and belief systems is where I see big drift happening in relationship. And I see one of the biggest areas this happens is around religion or spirituality, where couples have gotten into a relationship on the same belief system basis. Throughout the course of the relationship, one either finds something or lets go of something around their belief, and then there's no longer that alignment, and that can create a drift. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Don't leave home without them. It's amazing to me how many people will have no problem putting boundaries in place everywhere else in their life except their relationships. So, being in a relationship or a marriage with somebody does not mean that they are entitled to everything about you. There have to be appropriate emotional, mental, physical, spiritual boundaries in place in a relationship. And when those are constantly being crossed or violated, drift is going to start to happen. One of the biggest problems with communication, I know that everyone knows communication or lack of good communication is a big problem in a relationship, but the big thing is assumptions. People make a lot of assumptions about their partners. They assume they know what their partner's thinking. They assume they know what their partner meant when they said that thing. They assume they know how their partner's going to react if they tell them the truth. A lot of assumption is not based on any truth. So your communication has to be very real, and check in with your partner if what you're assuming is right or if it's wrong. That's shifting your assumptions around communication. If you're constantly assuming, you're going to create drift in your relationship. A big thing that creates massive shift in relationship is changing of life circumstances. So financial change in a relationship is a big one, especially if it's done in a really unworkable way, like a partner stealing money out of the bank account or secretly investing their life savings in something and the partner didn't know about it, or doing illegal stuff with that money at work, and then they get arrested. I see a lot of this actually. Financial and lack of integrity around finances in a relationship can create a big drift. So change of life circumstance. Another one that's just, I think anyone in my field is seeing a lot more of, is a shift in mental health. So people who are going into clinical depressions, people who are being diagnosed with severe mood disorders, those can create massive drift in relationship, because you suddenly don't know who you are in a relationship with or how to handle the mood disorder going on in a partner or with yourself. In those circumstances, please always get professional help. It's really important. One of the other big things that creates massive drift in relationship is addiction. So a lot of people struggling with drugs, alcohol, gambling, and sex addiction are the 4 big ones that I see. So a partner who's constantly facing addiction, it makes it impossible for the other partner to connect with them. So again, you need professional help if you are struggling with an addiction in your relationship. And if you can't move through that or past that, I don't know that your relationship will survive. So I've got an amazing addiction therapist that I refer all of my clients to. And if any of you are in need of her brilliant services, please pop me a note and I'll send you her details. But addiction is a massive one that creates drift in relationship. Any stressful life event, the birth of a child, moving to a new home, starting a new business, the death of somebody close to you, buying a home, having to suddenly change your financial responsibilities, any stressful life event can impact your relationship in a negative way if you let it. And the problem is that both people handle stress very differently in their relationships. And a lot of people tend to isolate when they're going through stress. So I'll deal with my stress on my own. And then when I've sorted it out, I'll come back and engage with you. And that doesn't work in relationship because your partner just feels left on the outside. So when you're going through stressful stuff, it's really important to hold each other through that stuff and support each other and find a solution together. So stress is a big one that creates drift. I'm a big fan of separate development in relationship. I really believe couples have to give each other space. You've got to go and explore your own lives. You've got to go and grow in your own way, but holding on to each other all throughout that. So what I see sometimes creates drift or separation in relationships is where couples are so busy involved in their own separate lives that they don't check back in with their partners. And it's like those 2 paths just go off in 2 separate directions, and then you lose your connection. So go and do your separate stuff and have your own hobbies and have your separate friendship groups and do things, but make sure you are doing stuff together as well. And lack of joint experiences is a big reason that relationships fall apart. So make sure you're connecting together. So the drifting of any relationship, anyone who's been through this knows that it's not a sudden thing, unless we're dealing with an infidelity, but it's really an erosion over time. It's like a slow creep. And before you know it, things are just not okay. And 9 times out of 10, when couples sit in my room and I say, what happened? They can't give me an answer because there was no specific event that happened. It was just a collection of a whole lot of behaviors that started going downhill. So check in at least once a week with your relationship, with yourself, with your partner. Like, what was this week? Are we still connecting? Is there affection? Have we lost our sense of humor? Are we still supporting each other? Make sure that you are properly connecting emotionally, that emotional intelligence stuff on a regular basis in your relationship. So a lack of that creates drift. So there's a whole lot of more stuff, but I'm going to kind of leave it there because those are the big ones. And I just want to shift over into saying what to do about it if you are experiencing drift in your relationship. So, one of 2 choices. Either the drift is so massive and you are in such separate places that you don't want to be in this relationship anymore. That's also okay. Not every relationship can be saved. Both people really have to be willing to make it work. So if you do want to make it work, the number one thing to know is that marriage or committed relationship is a choice. It is not an obligation. So stop treating your relationship like some obligation that you have to get through. You are choosing this person every day. And with that choice, there has to come the acceptance of who they are. And people are going to shift and evolve and grow through their lives. You've got to accept where that growth takes them. So marriage and commitment is a daily choice, okay? Guys, you've got to address your expectations, and expectations change. The things that you wanted maybe 5 years ago or 2 years ago are not what you want right now. So you have to keep checking in with yourself and talk about expectations with your partner. You have to talk about your needs, your values, your beliefs. It's almost like re-educating each other constantly. You have to keep teaching your partner how to treat you. And if you don't update the information, they're just going to keep assuming that you're the same person you were. So you have to always educate your partner. This is where I'm at now in my life. This is what shifts have happened. This is what I want to do now. Just, guys, keep stuff up to date. Keep the communication going. So boundaries, again, have a chat about boundaries where you feel boundaries are being crossed and not respected in your relationship. That's really important. Joint experiences, so date nights, date experiences around new things. Please don't do the same old, usual stuff that you do. Do new experiences that get you out of your comfort zones, because joint experiences build very strong bonds in relationship. It's great that you have separate development if you do, but make sure that within the relationship you are growing together somehow. You're doing courses, you're doing workshops, you're signing up for stuff, you're watching a lot of online things, you can do TED Talks, you can read books. Just keep the growth happening in your relationship, because that's what's going to really sustain your relationship. And guys, you have to always be willing to learn and be willing to let go of what doesn't work, and be willing to shift and change to adopt what needs to happen for the next phase of your relationship. So always be willing to learn and shift and evolve and grow in your relationships. If you are still struggling, then you come and you see me. Book a session with a relationship coach, relationship specialist who can work with both of you to find a way to reconnect and to stop that drift from happening. So I hope that's given you something to work with in your relationships. And and patience. You need a lot of patience and time to connect with each other. Don't push things fast. Don't push things hard. Just let things move at a pace that works for both of you, because change requires patience and change requires time. So think on all that. Have a beautiful evening, and I will see you again on Friday at 5 p.m.